Hello and welcome to the Blatantly Obsessive Media Makers podcast, where we are people who make media, but we also obsess over it. I'm SnakeJess Draws. I draw comics and make illustrations and do other things online generally.
Hell yeah. And I'm Julian, my Julian. And I do too much stuff. I've had so much coffee today. I'm not even a person anymore. I'm just a jittery sack of like meat and caffeine. And I have a need to chew, which is an entirely separate problem, but the caffeine doesn't help.
You're Fry from that episode of Futurama where he spends his tax rebate or refund or whatever on 100 cups of coffee.
Oh, hell yeah. That is me. I have way too much coffee. And it's a great way to avoid eating until I hit that wall where it's like, okay, I do have to put some actual food in my body or I might die.
Yeah. Yeah, big thing at ADHD. For unmedicated and especially for like medicated people is especially if they're using like stimulants, is being able to just go really long periods of time without eating and not noticing it, and then it all hits you at once, and it's like mega crash.
Damn.
But yeah, what a week. It's the new year. It's 2025 for us now, even. Crazy. I did not get my comics on Wednesday this week. I wasn't sure if they would be open on the 1st or not. And I was kind of busy that day, so I just never made it out. I went Friday. Weird week. Like, comic releases are really funny because they like... It's usually like once a month, but what week of the month it comes out changes. And when you get odd numbers of weeks and months, you'll get really weird releases. So this week, like, it just so happened that all of my pickups were Marvel except for one indie book. Or one DC book, sorry. Just because I guess the big two are the only ones that wanted to schedule comic drops. Like, literally the first. But yeah. Absolute Superman issue 3 came out this week. Did you get a chance to read that yet?
No, that's my my ongoing shame. I am very bad at keeping up with book releases. There should be an app or something that I can just put on my phone that will give me a notification that says like, "Hey, this book is out. You said you wanted to read it. Go read it." Because then I might actually keep up with stuff. Like even with manga, the only reason I keep up with any manga is because I have that app I mentioned where it will just like go to manga decks. Oh, there's a new release. It sends me a notification. Oh, it's already downloaded to my phone. Perfect. I'll read it before I go to sleep.
Yeah, this isn't as simple because it doesn't auto download anything for you. But League of Comic Geeks is what I use to track releases. Because you can make an account and you can create a pull list and like put titles on it and look at like what's new this week that's on your pull list. And you can also browse through what's coming up week by week just to see everything that's solicited. Sometimes an indie book won't be there. It runs off user contributions, but usually whenever I run into that problem, I look at the request and someone's already requested it and they're just waiting on a mod to like approve it.
Oh, okay. So if I have like some obscure French artist that I'm waiting for and their release schedule is like once every 4 years, they're probably not going to be on there.
Yeah, probably not. But if they're like at Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, Mad Cave, Titan, Alien, most of the small indie books I can think of, anything that shows up in a Diamond catalog will 100% show up on League of Comic Geeks. So it is extensive. It is a lot. They even like keep track of collected editions and stuff. You can mark like what you've read, what you bought, what you want on your pull list. My shop even integrates with them so that it syncs the pull list, which is nice. It's not a lot of shops do that, but I think every shop should do that because it's so useful.
I think the comic shop down the street from me probably does that. They seem to be very on the up and up when it comes to that kind of stuff because they are super capitalist pilled, so they view everything as like, oh, that's a way to make money. All right, let's do it.
Yeah,
And if I tell them about it and they're not doing it, they'll probably like leap on it like hungry panthers.
Yeah, you gotta these days. What with the market for like comic shops, which honestly have to be not even just comic shops these days, they have to be like collectible stores.
Yeah. A big asterisk on collectible because we know it's just Funkos.
Yeah, Funkos, Marvel Legends, Star Wars, trading cards.
Oh yeah, trading cards too.
Yep. I now the store I go to doesn't have as much of that, but I can see it over there in like one of the corners. I see the little boosters, the Lorcanas, the Magic the Gatherings, which oh my god, Magic the Gathering is going through it right now.
Sounds like they've been going through it, but each new update makes things sound progressively worse. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not in that.
Yeah, like for a long time I've wanted to get into Magic. I always dabbled in it going way back, ever since I was a little kid, ever since college. I've dabbled casual Magic. Because it's cool. I like cards, I like card art, I like cool mechanics.
Yeah.
It's fun. But now it seems like over the years, they have just leaned into really bad practices, like those insanely overpriced premium releases, and now it looks like they've gotten into the licensing game, which they had been doing for a while, but now it seems like literally half of their output is going to be that.
Interesting. So like Magic the Gathering VTuber decks, or not even decks. They don't do decks, do they? They just do like little
they do
boosters.
They will do decks. They'll do constructed decks. Like you can get constructed Lord of the Rings decks that are like mostly for beginners. Now I don't think they're good for competitive play, but it's mostly to be for that. But a lot of players are miffed about this though, because these are going to be legal in like most, if not all, formats. And that makes sense because you want like these.
They don't want to own Sonic the Hedgehog, Magic the Gathering trading cards.
And not want to be able to use them, right? If you're getting a new player from that license. So that makes sense, but it kind of pisses off a lot of old-time fans. The fact that they make these really expensive premium releases that are tournament viable, but are insanely expensive and really good, that pisses off a lot of players. And there's just tons of little stuff like that, and it's like, wow. And a long time ago when they started doing licensing cards, people were like, scared that one day it's going to end up, you're playing your SpongeBob deck against someone's Luffy deck. And, honestly, we're not that far off from that. It's kind of like, wow.
Oh, that's what I've been waiting for a while. There's a One Piece trading card game. And for some reason, no place near me stocks them. And so I'm like, how am I supposed to get these stupid One Piece cards? And then something that caught me, I realized, why would I buy a trading card game that I have nowhere to play with and no one to play with? So
that's what happens to me. I always realize that after I buy it though.
Yeah, so I had to stop myself. I'm like, no, I will not pay hundreds of dollars for whatever Amazon reseller decides to fleece me for this game. Yeah. Maybe Bandai will wake up and make a digital version, because digital is like blowing the heck up. People are getting back into Pokemon now because I guess the mobile app is really good.
Yeah, I'm about to probably do that too. I mean, because I'll collect a limited amount of a card game just to have the cards, because like Dragon Ball Super cards, a lot of them look sick. I collect the fuck out of them because they look sick. And you were talking about the One Piece card game. There's so many of these card games too that I don't know how they produce them, because like stores can only lean in to one or two of them. They can't carry all of them. So it really becomes like this regional game of which third card game do the players around you play.
Yeah.
Do you have a bunch of One Piece players or a bunch of Dragon Ball Super players? And then if they don't produce enough, like if they don't sell enough product, which is the big issue One Piece had, what I've seen outside looking in, is that it's hard for new players to acquire the cards because they're not produced enough, so the decks are too expensive, so it drives away fans. And you'll see this happen a lot. It's like you'll have card games where people get into them because of the relatively cheap decks, but then like they stop getting enough releases and it spikes up, and then people drop it and it fades away. But yeah, card game, wild stuff. I tried to get into the Digimon card game, but just don't have people to play with. But it's kind of fun. It's
It looks cool, and I would hope that like it gets expanded adequately, because there are a bunch of different Digimons and a bunch of different like variations. The gameplay flow looked very quick and snappy, which is mostly what I care about with those kinds of games now. I don't want to spend a whole hour on a round anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that would go digital. They've got like
Yeah.
the weird thing with that too is they did like because there had been a thing in Japan, this new iteration of the game for a while. My understanding of it is, so they had like 17 sets or something, and they
Yeah.
like speed released them when they brought the English cards over. So it was like set. So I wonder if it's gonna calm down a bit now that we'll be, I think, caught up to them for the most part.
I think the biggest issue is that that kind of thing needs a ecosystem to like sustain itself. So if they can't like trick a bunch of 15-year-olds or like people our age into participating in quote unquote official tournaments or something, it'll probably fizzle out. I hope
Yeah.
not, though.
So they need to get a really popular TV show out there stat, so all the little kiddies want the merch, so that in 20 years they can nostalgia hook them, you know?
I
You
wonder
need
if
to
people
perpetuate
care about
this.
that new Digimon that came out recently. It was like very ghost and spirit focused, which I thought was cool, but a lot of people, from what I could see, didn't care. It's like, well, hey, this one's actually good.
I didn't even know that it was out, so I should probably look into that.
It's still like a show for kids, but I'm used to that at this point.
Oh yeah. But yeah, Absolute Superman. Issue 3, it's out. This was a cool issue. This whole issue took us back to Krypton, back to Clark's childhood. I like that Clark is older in here, right? Like he doesn't leave as a little baby. He's like well into being like, I don't know. I guess he's like what, a sixth grader is where I'd probably put him around. I think
Okay.
that's the age vibe I'm getting. He's around there. Anyway, so we know from the last two issues that his parents are suspecting something's wrong. They're putting together research. They're not telling the kid yet. And they've heard about his stuff with not wanting to use the AI. The parents are proud of him about that. The parents are renegades. They're little rebels. We've known this. They get what they need to know. Found out. They try to tell the science clerics, but they get arrested. And they do break out and escape. But throughout this whole plot, Clark ends up at the central place, and he's looking on some computers and finding some data, and he finds out that, and he reveals this to the whole planet, but he finds out that the clerics have actually known the planet was doomed for a long time and have just diverted all of their resources secretly into building fleets of ships to take the higher class clerics off the planet and somewhere else, and have just not told anyone. And they've been hushing all of the news about the events that have been coming out that like yeah. So that was a really good little twist on it, I think. The upper classes, the rich people, the whatever the fuck, behaving exactly as you expect. And I like that Clark in this universe is also like a little truth exposer. He has to get that out there so that people know. It's a very good issue. I like that a lot. I like that little twist. I liked how it all went down. Yeah, all hits with this absolute universe so far. I'm really excited to see what they bring this year as we get like the Wally West, the Green Lantern, and the Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what happens. I don't think I've been as like, whoa, what's going to happen next since Marvel did their first Ultimate run, because it was all like actually different, and then like seeing the different changes that they would make was also part of the fun. Like my favorite example is what's his face, Hydro Man is in Ultimate Spider-Man, but like as a fake out, like, oh, we're just going to mention him.
That kind of feels like Marvel in general with Hydra Man, because you said the name and I recognized it, but I'm like, I think I recognize it more from having that Marvel Spider guide, that like Ultimate Spider-Man guide or whatever, that they put those books out, those guidebooks for kids,
Yeah.
like a character guide. I think the one I had like a white cover with Spider-Man on it. They list the whole Rogues Gallery, and Hydra Man's in that, but he doesn't really get much development. I feel like Sandman has been used a lot more than him, and even Sandman, I feel like, is more popular from being in, I feel like, the movies than he is for being Sandman in the comics. But I could be wrong there. He's had way more comic time, I feel like, than Hydra Man.
Oh, I'm liking this cover for Absolute Superman issue 3. Is the inside of the book like this, like with the green clouds and stuff?
There's some of that. There's some of that when you see like you see some fields getting messed up and stuff.
Oh, okay.
But it's yeah, no, the cover it's pretty sick. Let's see, the other big book this week, Ultimates 8 came out, which was also really cool. Every Ultimates issue just feels so good. It's such a big run. The big twist here was we got to see like this alternate timelines Guardians, which when I looked at the cover, I was like, who the hell are these supposed to be?
Yeah. Like
And
that one particularly anime looking guy, I was like, oh, what's going on here?
yeah,
With the white hair and the striped arm tattoos.
yeah. I did their version of Star Lord, who I think kind of draws off the more early lore of him, which is really cool too. Blue Chick, I was like, what the hell? I love the dog. That the dog's there though. The dog's great.
Yeah.
But I don't have too much. Oh! What was going on with the? Uh Never mind. I just got it. The dude in the tube was healing up as Tony. There was some weird stuff going on where, like, I don't know, either Tony or Reed are destined to fuck something up. One of them is, and it's probably
Oh
gonna
yeah,
be.
when the bald guy was like micro analyzing Doom, like, oh yeah, I remember now, the man in the iron mask and the man with the iron lung. One of
Yeah,
them is going to ruin the universe. And it's like, shut up, man.
yeah. Oh, it's gonna be a trip. But it was a very exciting issue. I like that concept of hard time they talked about, this period where like they couldn't enter in and change it. I feel like it's probably been used before, but I know when I was reading through, there was an Alan Moore pitch for like an event for DC that never got used, that did something kind of like this, um, called Twilight of the Superheroes. But it would involve a thing that happens where there's like a block on time travel, so that there's like this fucked up future they're in and it can't be changed because of some kind of time travel block, and having to work around it. And I don't know, I think that stuff's kind of always interesting to me, as like oh, here's an explanation for why in a universe of time traveling you don't have time travelers fucking your shit all the time, except for when you
Yeah.
do. But I don't know, it's just a fun idea.
It's fun to think about, especially with stuff like the recent Venom run, where like He goes to Doom because Doom has a time machine, and it's like, well, also King has a time machine, and they are both very liberal about their usage, but also they follow the rules because I guess not following the rules, uh, they're smart enough to know like what will keep them out of trouble while they're meddling.
Mm-hmm. And even like Doom's talking about how his time machine is better because it lets him kind of change things and bend the rules a bit more, which is kind of funny to me. Uh,
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like, if you wanted to be uh, the kind of person that's like very quippy, you could be like, "Oh, you mean like a normal time machine Doom?"
so
And then he'll get
this,
angry, and then he'll explain exactly how his is different. And then, if I were writing Spider-Man, I would just make him like extremely disrespectful. Doesn't matter how much explaining Doom does. He's just like, "Yeah, whatever, man."
I could see that. I gotta catch up on that Joe Kelly Spider-Man run at some point to see exactly how that Doom Spidey interaction is going down. Because he's kind of working for Doom right now, is my
Oh,
understanding of what's happening in Amazing Spider-Man.
that sounds crazy.
Yeah. Doom is also the Sorcerer Supreme of Earth right now.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. They are, I think they're the first big kind of little Marvel event of the year is right around the corner. And it's looking like it's going to be, what are they calling it? One World Under Doom is the thing.
I hate knowing that like the only reason this is probably happening is to like get people keyed in for that movie that's eventually going to come out with
Oh my god.
Robert Downey Jr. But I
You're
also
right.
have to like proactively not think about it so that it doesn't ruin the fun of it because these sound like cool ideas.
There probably is some amount of that, although thankfully this will be all said and done well before we see that Avengers movie.
I hope so.
This will be done by the time summer rolls around so that they can do their next big thing in like August, I would bet, is about when they'll do it. But yeah, that is where that's going. And I know it's going to be crossing over into a bunch of issues. Like I know the cover of like next month's X Factor issue has like some Doom stuff on it. So it's looking like it'll be pretty big. We'll see what it is. I'm kind of I knew that this was going to wrap up sooner than later just because you can't leave Doom as the Sorcerer Supreme. I just wonder what they're going to do with it cuz like you got if you're gonna use Doom for something like this, you better be cooking a really good plot, or else it's gonna feel lazy.
Yeah. It's like, oh, who's a bad guy I can use? Oh, Doom. Everyone knows Doom. But
Another
then if it's
big
written
book.
well, then no one's thinking about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Another big book this week: Deadpool and Wolverine.
I
About
haven't read that yet. I immediately pulled it the moment I saw it because those are always exciting books.
yeah.
Good character writing.
I won't spoil it too much then plot wise, but it is fun. I enjoyed it. It's my favorite Marvel slot. I love it. It's exactly what you want. I'm glad that they're doing it. I hope it gets like 12 issues at least. I don't know if it's like a
Oh, that
mini
would
or
be
anything.
very hopeful thinking. These books usually barely break like 4 issues.
You get a trade, but they're being pretty liberal with the X office right now. So we'll see. I don't. They were a little too. I'm surprised this didn't happen during the Deadpool Wolverine movie release window, but
Yeah.
they did have a separate thing going on during that time. They had like a 8-piece. They have like a story with Deadpool and Wolverine, but it was told in like 8-piece backup pages. So like you would buy different issues of different comics, and they would each have a part of it in their backup. And then
Oh,
after
that's
that was
crazy.
done, they released it as its own book as well.
Have they ever considered doing that with their app, like releasing pages over whatever stretch of time, and you can only read them in the app, and then after that, they release the book?
They kind of they do that for their Infinity comics, which are a set of comics they have that are like they're like meant to be scrolled through,
Yeah, they're formatted like
like a
what is a
webtoon.
tapas? Yeah, webtoon.
Yeah, they have those, and those they will release physically after the fact.
I sometimes like reading those because they do interesting stuff with the framing that I like. Like you'll have a frame with a particular camera position, and it will hold that position over the course of like 6 frames while characters are moving around. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, this is actually kind of cool, and it's almost more immersive than if I were to read it like tabbed out across a page because it's
Mm-hmm.
taking up the whole of the screen.
Yeah, they got some stuff there that can be fun, and it's nice too, especially if you like some of the secondary characters, because a lot of secondary characters that might not get time of day in a print book will get some love in those.
Yeah, like a whole set of issues with a Deadpool and Squirrel Girl, which probably would have happened anyway, but I think I recall it being a Infinity exclusive when it was first coming out.
It Jeff, of course, has his whole own little dedicated Infinity book.
Oh, of course he does.
Very he's so cute. Need more Jeff merch. There's probably going to be more Jeff merch. Jeff has gone mainstream with Marvel Rivals. Jeff is a thing now.
Look out, Balaj! Someone's coming for your throne.
Yeah.
Is that still
Oh
a thing? Do
God,
people still buy the little shark plush?
trans women do,
Yeah.
but it's like a 0.5% of people. And I guess what the Swedish, because that's where.
Yeah, it's a IKEA product, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So the Swedish and the trans will never stop being Blage's last warriors. Uh, but they've done. I think they should hype up Marvel Unlimited more. I think they really should. I think that's like not a bad place to invest in the future of the properties. They already
Yeah,
have it.
because a lot of people will read that stuff on their phone, and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people like I guess are aware of and into these movies. Like every time I show an MCU movie to a family member, they're like, "Wow, that was great!" And you can see them reading webtoon or whatever. You could probably trick any number of those kinds of people into paying, what is it, $5 for Marvel Unlimited?
I think it's like $10 a month or something like that,
Whoa.
and you get new comics, like new comics that they print come out on like a 3-month delay on there.
Yeah.
I'd argue that it should be like a 1-month delay, or they should have like maybe the 3-month delay, but for like a brief period, the absolute newest are there for free. Then they go into like a timeout, and then they're there again, or
I
maybe
think the
something
reason for
like
the
that.
delay is to not like,
Kill comic book shops.
yeah, they don't want anyone to feel like they're being undercut because then they might stop like front ordering books for like print shops and stuff.
Yeah, that's also the reason why they won't charge cheaper value for digital comics until they've aged a bit.
Mm.
You'll see
I
like
always
once
wondered
they
about that.
yeah,
I'm like, it's digital; it should cost less.
yeah. And they will drop it like once it's like 6 months old, they'll drop it down to like $1 an issue, but they won't do it right away. That is one thing that makes the Marvel books a little neat, is because they'll give you a digital copy if you redeem the code.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of a pain in the ass, especially for the ones where they make you like take a picture of the cover and submit it. But it does add a little bit of extra value there, because then you can read them on the go, like with your phone if you want.
That is what I like to do. My goal is to eventually have digital versions of everything I have physically, which will then allow me to be more flexible with how I store my physical stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I bought the special editions of the Scott Pilgrim books, the color and the black and white edition. Haven't
Mm-hmm.
opened them though. Have no need to open them because I have it all on my phone. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, dude, I don't know. I think you should advertise it more or something. I mean, how come there isn't like in front of your little movies, your little Marvel movies, there isn't a little plug that's like, hey, check out Marvel Unlimited
One would
on
think
your
so.
phone?
Like, especially with all of the stuff that they're producing, like I should be inundated with Marvel Unlimited stuff when I sit down to watch that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man show.
Yeah. I have I have like no excitement for that at all.
It looks
God.
so bad, but then every now and then I'll see like a still frame of it. And it's like, oh, that doesn't look so bad. But then I'll look at the trailer again, like, oh, it looks so bad in motion. Ugh. I also really annoyed that it's another origin story. Like, can we tell some new Spider-Man stories in animation, please?
Yeah,
Why does everyone have to like do their own version from the beginning, going through all the same story beats over and over again?
I really don't need another high school Peter. I was
Yeah.
kind of willing to forgive it when it was going to be like the initial premise of like they're backfilling some early stuff for Tom's Spider-Man
Yeah.
that like could have had some promise because then they could maybe provide some context for future stuff in the movies or maybe give like fans some stuff that they're not going to get out of these movies. But now that it's like very thoroughly its own thing, it's like I don't why bother? I don't I
Yeah,
just
they
don't
did
even
this
feel like it.
already. What was it? Disney XD had a high school Spider-Man cartoon,
There've
and
been
it
so many
sucked.
Spider-Man cartoons. There have been so many.
I
The
remember
last
they
good one
did
was I think a Sony one.
it, good is kind of relative, but
I guess
a lot of
it,
people remark on it fondly. I
yeah,
watched some of it and I thought, wow, this is so bad,
which
but
one
maybe
was
that's
that?
just me. The CGI one from the early 2000s. Oh no, wait, you said
Oh,
Sony. I was
the
thinking of
MTV one.
MTV.
Yeah, I've never got into the MTV one either. I thought even when it was new, I thought that 3D was kind of jank.
Yeah,
I,
like I can appreciate it somewhat in the hindsight because they were doing the cell shading, like
mm-hmm,
block shadowing technique that I like. But it's better in video games for like a feature. They should do more.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I just was, and I know ostensibly it's supposed to be like in this weird place where it like follows the first Raimi movie, but it's its own thing still. But
Yeah.
I just I was never super huge into it. I didn't think the action scenes came across very good. It just never held me. But yeah, I don't get people who love that one either. I'm not huge on it. What I was really thinking of that I see people like a lot. I can't really speak to it because I've not seen much of it. But there was a spectacular Spider-Man cartoon that was
Oh
like a
yeah, that
2D
one was really
animated one.
good.
Yeah, yeah, I hear that. I need to go back and watch it. But it got killed, even though it was doing well,
Yeah.
because that's when the rights were like got bought back.
It had really good writing and it did stuff with the side characters that made it so that whenever Peter Parker is on the screen, you're not going, "Where's Peter Parker?" It's like, "Oh, okay, we're following Gwen now. What's she doing? Ooh, whoa, a scene all about what Brock is doing. Oh boy, what's that? What's that asshole up to?"
Dang, sounds like they did it good.
It was very good. With Brock in particular, I liked how his like interaction with the symbiote kind of affected him in the same way that it affects Peter Parker, in that like he just becomes a worse person as a result of like the symbiotes preying on and enhancing his inhibitions. And up to that point in the story, everything had been like going badly for Eddie. Uh, Entirely not his fault. But Eddie's perspective is it's Peter's fault. And when he finds out Peter is Spider-Man, he just like goes above and beyond to like try and get people to think Peter Parker is Spider-Man and they both suck. And for a kids show, I think it was very well written.
I'm gonna have to bump this up higher on my list. My list is so long, but I'm always finding new things.
There's too much. Like I often joke amongst all the people in our friends group, I watched the most television, which is mostly to my detriment because I'm not like as keyed into all of it as most people are. Like you all have like absolute recall of like different jokes from American Dad or like favorite episodes of King of the Hill, and my brain is still stuck in like baby mode where like my absolute recall is an episode of The Big Comfy Couch or like a plot from Sesame Street from 1998 when they were doing like plots.
See, the only reason I have it is because I've rewatched those shows way too many times.
That makes sense.
When all those shows have had time to be on my sleepy show rotation, so they've been watched over and over and over. Although I do have, I have had comments before that like I have a lot of recall from like show stuff. Which I think is true to a degree. I do have kind of one of those brains that soaks up like all this random information like a sponge, but can't remember like important things, like dates I need to do stuff by, at all.
Yeah, I have the opposite problem. Like, I don't even remember characters' names. Me and my sister started watching an anime at the same time once, and talking to her was so frustrating because she would know the names of characters and I would just know like traits of a character.
I do that
So I'm
sometimes.
trying to describe a character and it's taking longer than it needs to.
Yeah, sometimes I'll just know characters by like, okay, that's the main character. That's main character's friend. That that I'll like just have that, and I won't know much about them. And if it's a show I'm listening to while I'm drawing or something, I might not. I might even have only a vague clue of what they look like.
Oh yeah.
Some shows I do only get at like a little skim from the top kind of level like that, just because yeah, I'm the same thing with actors too, like especially with movies, because like movies are short. If it's not in a series and it's not a long show, you're not spending tons of times with the characters. I'll be thinking of a character as the actor in my mind, like by name. They're just
right.
That's just oh yeah, Will Ferrell's character. I know it's a character, but it
That's how I feel about Jake Johnson. Like, not to be mean to Jake Johnson, but whenever he acts in something, it kind of feels like it's just another version of himself. So it doesn't matter what the script says that guy's name is. I'm like, okay, this is just Jake Johnson in the year 2024. Not to be confused with Jake Johnson in the year 2007. That was a different character, a different Jake.
Yeah. There have been many repeat Jake doppelgangers over the years.
Oh yeah. Like his character in Drinking Buddies, I feel like is just the Jake Johnson from New Girl. Like maybe after New Girl ended, that's what he decided to do with his life, to brew beer.
Sort of like how people draw the line for what's his name? His character from X-Files to Malcolm in the Middle to Walter White in Breaking Bad.
Oh, I should remember this name. Oh, darn.
Right? It's slipping me too. It's like right on the tip of my tongue.
Brian
Cranston?
Maybe I gotta look it up.
Okay. Hold on, I need
Let's
1
see.
second. I'll be right back.
That might be it. Bryan Cranston. Yep, that was it. That's kind of funny. He goes from X-Files to Malcolm in the Middle and then becomes Walter White. And then Walter White dies, and then he doesn't die. He wakes up in the Godzilla movie universe for one movie. I gotta rewatch that movie.
Sorry, I'm back.
Sorry, I got distracted. I was looking up the Bryan Cranston confirmation, and yeah, that's his name.
Yes, Bryan Cranston, X-Files. He's like an extra in one episode, or like he's like the I guess the plot revolves around him in it. And then Malcolm in the Middle, he's the dad, and then Walter White, he becomes the worst person on earth. Fun show.
Fun Bryan Cranston fact: he did a bunch of anime dubs in the 80s and 90s. You can hear him on some dubs of Dr. Slump,
What?
Little Women, OVA, Macross Plus,
Wild.
Street Fighter, the animated movie, Armitage 3, that's a classic.
Wow, I had no idea.
Oh, Galaxy Express 999. He was the character just titled Suitor, so that was probably just like 3 lines of dialogue.
Always wild to see those crossovers.
Yeah. It's interesting that like dubbing used to be more of a thing that like had wider range. It feels like for the longest time I only ever heard of maybe like 10 of the same names when it came to dubbing. It's getting a bit more wider now because I guess some of these people are getting older and retiring or taking their money and experience and then starting their own talent agencies.
Mm-hmm.
Or getting like a industry canceled for being a handsy creep. We all know who I'm talking about.
I don't know. It could be, I don't know who you're talking about because it could be so many people.
Oh, there was a specific case. What was his name? Vic Mignogna.
Oh, yep. I have heard of that.
Which is very interesting because there was someone I used to follow online who was like dead set on defending him, and then I guess after like the allegations became definitively set in stone, they just disappeared off the internet. I'm going to avoid mentioning who I'm thinking about. That just that's what my brain has categorized next to Vic Mignogna. It's like, oh yeah, that one person I used to follow. They're gone now. They were ride or die with Vic, and then they died.
Yeah, that's the other side of ride or die. You know, sometimes everyone likes to be ride or die when it's ride, but once we get to die, they get a little little hung up on it.
True.
No, ride or die. You live by it, the Vic Mignon or whatever the fuck his name is, you die by him.
I have no idea how to pronounce that guy's name. I
I
have all the
refuse.
letters, but I have no idea like where that G actually like gets utilized.
I've decided I'm just gonna pronounce stuff wrong now. Because no one likes the person who's like, no one likes the white person who's like, oh, I'm gonna butcher this. So you know
Oh,
what?
yeah.
I'm just gonna confidently butcher it until I get corrected, and everyone
The
can deal with
cornerstone
that.
of speech in general. Like a lot of English words are just like poorly pronounced French words, but I guess like everyone like collectively agreed. For English, we're just gonna say it wrong. We don't like the French version anyway.
We trained him wrong, like a joke. But yeah, this week has been a big week for me. So I have finally basically finished. I'm in like the last like few minutes of it. So I'm, I know where the plot's going. The first, the last of the first 6 books by Frank Herbert of Dune. A lot of people might not know this. Dude, there's tons of Dune books now. You can look over. There's tons of Dune books, right?
Right.
Only 6 written by the first author, Frank Herbert, written from like the 60s and on. Then, after he passed, his son, along with Kevin J. Anderson, who is I guess you could say controversial, divisive figure in the old Star Wars expanded universe community, very love him or hate him guy. He partnered with Brian Herbert, Frank Herbert's son. They produced a bunch of novels supposedly based off notes. They produced many novels based off notes. I don't think these notes. They've never produced the notes. They won't show the notes. It's like it's Notegate. The notes.
They don't want us to know how badly they adapted the notes. I'm assuming.
If they exist, if they're even still using notes anymore. I've read summaries of some of the added lore, and like it's not that it's like bad or like the books, prose wise are definitely going to be different. They're more like standard sci-fi actiony plots from what I understand. But I'm gonna check them out now that I've finished. I'm gonna go through and figure out like the publication order I think they did with them, and listen to them that way. Because I imagine as he's built up his own lore, it seems to me like he self-references his own lore a lot, right? So like he went back and did some prequel stuff, and then eventually did 2 books that finish. Because where Frank Herbert left off was like a cliffhanger, not a cliffhanger, but like open-ended, very open-ended. There was a big threat that hadn't been revealed yet, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but. So he like makes a bunch of lore in these prequels, and then he uses that lore from the prequels to set up like what he has the end be. And so I'm gonna get to that. But Frank Herbert does these 6 books, and they're really, really interesting books because the books are really about like kind of the philosophy behind human like existence and governance and control, and like our behaviors throughout history, how everything about how we act towards each other. They're really, a lot that gets lost on the book, like in the movies, I think, is the thoughtfulness of all the interactions that the characters have. There's a lot, and I think Villainy managed to capture this pretty well, even in his movie. There's a lot of characters thinking about why they're doing things, or like what their motivation is, or examining another character and wondering about them, stuff like that. Like the Bene Gesserit are a big group, and one of their like core tenets is viewing words, like literal conversational words, are weapons to them, because they are always conscious of how they speak, of their word choice, of
Mm.
like really subtle things too, like the difference between like saying something is good or something's acceptable, or like I allow something versus that's something you can do. Just really subtle things will happen. And when they get two Bene Gesserit characters get into a conversation, it is like a minefield of what are they saying? What are they not saying? Uh, what is this? Was this sentence designed to divert me? Was this designed to get rid of my to push my thoughts? And it's really interesting. But I'll get into the plot a little bit because that'll help explain how some of this goes down and how it works. Because this is what's really neat. Is so the setup of Dune is that we live in the far future, 10,000 X off some odd years in the future. Humanity's in the stars. We used to have AI and thinking machines, but we got rid of them because not because machines. So this is where it gets kind of retconned. But in the original 6 books, in God Emperor of Dune, the machines were really good and really strong, and they were possibly sentient. But it wasn't necessarily that we were ruled by machines, but rather we had really strong AI and humans using the really strong AI to fuck over everyone else.
As they are known to do.
Yeah, exactly. And Leto the Second has a bit where he's talking about it, and he's like, what do machines do? Machines, they reduce the amount of stuff you can do without thinking. And therein lies the danger of technology, the better it gets. The more you do without thinking, the more cruel you get, the more like inhuman things you can do to one another. Eventually, it gets so strong you can subjugate entire populations without thinking about it, and that's the problem, which I'll touch a bit on more. But that's kind of the backdrop it comes off of. So, in response to that, humans have branched off, and we've started exploring human potential in different ways, and we have this drug called spice, which can help with that. It can make you. It extends your life. It can put you in like a kind of other high conscious state, but to make the most of it, you kind of have to know how to do stuff. So you have a political system that's basically feudal, and this existed before the jihad. It seems like that's just why the structure kind of exists. It's balanced. You have an emperor who's really strong with a bunch of forces, and then all the great houses, which form what they call the Landsraad, which is kind of like a parliamentary government, which counterbalances the emperor. So all of the houses united could take the emperor. The emperor could challenge them, but they don't. They're like a little thing. The Bene Gesserit are like an order of people. They're not like institutionalized power, but they're like their own little group or organization. They're so cool because they aren't like a religion. They craft religions. They use religions. But they themselves aren't. They have like manuals and codas and beliefs, but they also don't. Those are suggestions. What's interesting about them is they are always trying to be mindful and to adjust and to not get stagnant. They're trying to preserve humanity. Survival is their biggest thing. The sisterhood is the most important thing to them. The sisterhood above all. They want to survive as a sisterhood and as humans as a species. That's basically where they come from. In the first book, what they're trying to do is they want to produce a Kwisatz Haderach, which is a very specific thing. So to understand what this is, we got to know they have their special. They have tons of special techniques they've learned, but the big thing they have is what's called other memory. This is genetic memory. They have all the memory of their female parentage, all the way back to Earth, back to because anyone who's alive has ancestry back to the first living things by virtue of being alive. So they have cultivated this other memory. They can tap in to the memory of their female parentage. They cannot look at the male side. They can only look at the side that they've come through, but they have that. That's one of their biggest things. They get that once they do what's called the spice agony, which is they either die doing that. It's where they poison themselves with this spice stuff. And if they survive it, they can access that other memory. And that gives them, like, super context, right? Because, like, they don't need to learn. They can reinterpret history from having been in it. One of the big, and a lot of their teachings deal with this. You know, it's like you don't trust history because it's written with a bias. You know, you take it, get your information from it, learn what you need to learn from it, try to figure out who this history is serving and for what purpose, cross-reference it with yourself. They've got this thing, they call it simulflow. It's how they can, like, be conscious and exist in their day-to-day, but as they're doing stuff, relevant memories from the past will, like, just resurface to them if it's useful to the task at hand.
Has anyone called out the Avatar writers? Because this all sounds like a Last Airbender stuff.
I mean, honestly, they probably... These books have been around so long that they probably seeped into... I mean, the whole, like, Jedi mind trick, that is, like, literally just the voice.
Oh, shit.
Because they have a thing called the voice where they can compel you to do stuff unless you're, like, specifically resistant to it. And to me, that's just the Jedi mind trick. But, you know, they're calling it a voice instead.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, the first book takes place on Dune, a desert planet. Star Wars starts on Dune, or on Tatooine, a desert planet. The only thing he didn't take was drugs and sandworms. But there is some people like to talk about the fact that Jodorowsky's Dune movie Bible was floating around for a long time. They like to say that that probably inspired a lot of things on Star Wars, and I don't doubt it did. Not that I think that really means much of anything, because Star Wars is very much its own beast. But so that's what they're doing. They can also detect lies. They can do something that's called truth saying, which isn't exclusive to them. Other people can be what's called the truth sayer, which is this, they can detect lies. But Bene Gesserit are, like, the best at it. They can manipulate their body chemistry to extreme degrees. They can't be, like, defeated by sickness. They can, like, fix sickness. They can actually extend their life indefinitely, but they don't. Because if it got noticed, they'd get hunted down and killed. They're, like, smart enough from their other memory to know that that's a bad idea. And this added historical context of other memory is really cool because it stops them from doing a lot of things. It gives them a lot of insight into, like, governments and how they form. They've got a lot to say about, like, bureaucracies and how those turn bad, how aristocracies turn bad, how, like, kind of every form of government is bad. They, at the point where it ends, they kind of call their governance more of, like, a jury where every single Bene Gesserit is, like, a jury member. And they kind of all could possibly disagree. Because another thing they say is, you know, never blindly follow power. You know, your Reverend Mother might give you or the Supreme Reverend Mother might give you a command, but always make your own moral choices. So, like, sometimes they'll even get, like, what heretic factions within their own order, but, like, that's kind of good because it pressures them and, like, evolves them. They're very much against, like, ever having any kind of set rule that's forever. They're very against knowing things. Like, thinking, because if you think you know something, you're shutting yourself out to new info. That's another thing that comes up in the books a lot, although I think that mostly comes from Mentats, which we'll get to. But that's the Bene Gesserit. That's, like, their big thing. And that's where the stuff with Paul comes from initially. Because Jessica... the other thing is they kind of have a restriction on emotion. It's not that they're not allowed to have it, but they kind of view it as weakening, and so they don't love it. And that starts to change towards the end of the books as, like, one of a different character from another faction kind of joins them and takes over. But that's actually what causes the problem in the first book, because Jessica is a concubine to the head of House Atreides, and she has given him a son when she was supposed to give him a daughter, which is a thing they can literally fucking control. They can use,
Wow.
yeah, they can magic control their fucking body and just make their child whatever gender they want. So that's what causes the disruption. Paul is a Kwisatz Haderach, but he was an accident. They wanted the next child to be one. They wanted a female to wed off to the Harkonnens, and then to have a son. And then they were going to try to control that Kwisatz Haderach. And the reason the Kwisatz Haderach would be important is because he can use the other memory to look down both sides. So he would be able to look down the male path as well and get the female path and see the whole entirety of human history that way, or of what they've captured.
So that's what would make him like the avatar of that world, since they can only see their gender.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's the last time I'm going to make that joke. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. It's good to have a comparison to for people who don't. There's a lot of setup at the beginning to explain these factions. So I really want to get across how fucking cool these are. So that's the main thing. That's what they've been doing. The Harkonnens are one of the big noble houses. They hate the Atreides. The Atreides hate the Harkonnens. That's like a classic kind of thing. We don't even really need to talk about that. There's another big faction of people. These are the Bene Twi'leks. These people are fucking weird. These guys are like on the border of humanity. They're like thought of as gross and filthy. They do like crazy flesh experiments. So they are exploring technology, but instead of going down like the technology route, they do it through like humankind and making flesh monstrosities and weird like creatures. They've created, so their society is completely different than ours. They've got masters, which are kind of like whenever you deal with Twi'lexi, you're dealing with masters, basically. They're the ones in charge. They're the leaders. The master we see the most throughout the series of books is one particular one called Scytale. He shows up throughout all of the thousands of years of history of the Twi'lexi is Scytale. They control, they got minions, so they got face dancers. You never see face dancers without a master, so they're somewhat subservient, basically slaves, I guess. We don't really know how they're grown or made. They can take anyone's face. They're like spies. They could they're really good at it. Part of what the Bene Gesserit Truthsayers are, part of their job is like making sure that detecting Twi'lexi spies. They make tons of other stuff. They make golas. Golas are a way of like bringing a dead person back to life. They can like throw a copy of a dead person, like a clone almost. Now they won't have the memories of their past life. At first, they don't know how to do that. Eventually, they learn because when Paul's the emperor, they make one to fuck with him. So the first book happens. And one other planet you gotta know next is Ix. These guys they're like the odd man out. They don't really fuck with the rest of the Imperium that much because the rest of the Imperium doesn't really like them because they skirt the line of the Butlerian Jihad. They still fuck around with machines. They make like computer robot stuff. People don't really trust them. They don't have full-on AI or crazy off-the-wall stuff, but they're like, they're pushing it. People don't love them. They're kind of off in their own place. They're Ix. We don't see tons of straight Ixians. They kind of get talked about more than actually show up and do stuff. So that's like all the preamble and setup. So the first book, Dune, it's what most people are familiar with because it's been in several movies. Paul gets born. The Emperor is betraying the Atreides because he thinks they're too popular and it scares him and he feels threatened. Worth noting here that like in like European aristocracy and stuff, he's actually a cousin to Duke Leto Atreides. Like all these fucking ruling noble people are like in these weird fucking branches of family and stuff. Anyway, he makes a plan to betray them. The Harkonnens are in on it because the Harkonnens hate the Atreides. And the Emperor views this as like a two stones because like the Harkonnens, on the other hand, they're rich. They're super rich. They're richer than the Emperor because they've been on like holding the House of Arrakis for so long and making money off the spice. Oh yeah, the one other faction is the Chom Spacing Guild. They're the ones that control all travel because they have the guild navigators that can use spice to fold space. One other key aspect of this folding space is no one really knows how it works. They use this thing called like a Holtzman effect, which someone had figured out the math for it, but they don't really know, they don't understand the why of it. So they use it, but it's still relatively new to them. So he betrays them. Paul takes over. Part of the thing of Paul taking over is he gets his prescience, which is his like ability to see all the different ways things could go. His future seeing. He's determined to get revenge. He wants to not have there be a jihad of the known universe, but he locks himself in. He basically hits a point where, because of how the Missionaria Protectiva, which is the Bene Gesserit name for like seeding religions and stuff, because of like how ingrained it is, he basically hits a point where if he dies, his followers are already so zealous towards him that they'll view it as a sacrifice so that his spirit can carry on and guide them. And if he wins, they'll just view him as the unstoppable god. So no matter what, he dies or he lives, they're on this path of like taking over the galaxy after he's usurped Dune. So that's why he stays alive, so he can try to moderate it. So then Dune Messiah happens. This is where the next film's going to be taking place. Whenever it gets made. Dune Messiah is like 10 years down the road. He's the emperor now. He's married the daughter of the old emperor, which is like really fully solidifying his claim to the throne. He has kids with Chani, who's Zendaya's character from the movie. Those kids are born abominations. And so is his sister. His sister is born an abomination too. His mom gets pregnant and has another child. And what I mean by abomination is they're born, but they've had like spice. They've had like the spice agony hit them when like they're in the womb. So they have like the other memory of both lines going back as well. But they also have the other memory from like the time they're a fetus in the womb. So they basically come out fully functional adults in like baby bodies.
Wow. That's crazy.
No, it's fucked up, and it really weirds people out talking to them.
Do not show this to that certain class of anime fan that
oh god
is getting too much of what they like lately.
No, keep them away from this. We don't need any of that. They're really the age of humankind talk around here. Okay, man. I'm going to tell you something that happens in the 6th book, and you might not like it.
Damn.
Oh, man. It is very related to this. So, let's see. The 2nd book, the big event that happens is Paul realizes he is trapped in his prescience. He, basically, he can't escape this sort of path he's let out for himself. He's constantly trapped with his choices. His sister, who's an abomination, is what they call her, but she's fine. She's handling, she's doing good. He disappears. He kind of goes off into the desert, Paul does, to go off to die. He's like not even sure what he wants anymore. He gets blinded at one point by like an atomic attack, and he uses his prescience to be able to see. He like sees the future and uses that to figure out what's going on, and like it's wild. So everyone's all like pogging out because he's blind but he can see. They really do think he's God. Other notable events that happened before I get on to the next big thing. Oh, they give him a Gola. The Twi'lexi give him a Gola. So in the first movie, Jason Momoa's character, the swords master, the keeper of arms, Duncan Idaho, he's someone who's like super loyal to the Atreides. He is a really good friend to Paul and to Paul's father. He gets brought back as a Gola. And they give the Gola a bunch of very specific philosophy training so that it can be a mind trap for Paul. Basically, they have like crafted it with like philosophies that counter a lot of Paul's beliefs, and they're hoping that it'll create enough uncertainty in him that he makes a bad decision. But Paul knows they're doing this to him, by the way. And he knows that they picked Duncan Idaho because it's meant to fuck with him. He knows all of it, but he's like, okay, whatever, this is fine. He keeps the Duncan Gola because it's his friend. He eventually goes off to the weather to die. The sister falls into, this is like kind of the big plot in Messiah. She falls into one of the big traps, which is, it's revealed that, this is shown in the first book too, I think they mentioned it, but they really play with it here. Jessica is actually Paul's mother was actually a Harkonnen. She didn't know that because she was taken when she was born, but she was a Harkonnen. So they have in her other memory, his sister has like the Baron Harkonnen's memory, and she was like consulting it for like what to do and political things, and eventually it actually takes over her, and she becomes a weird Baron, not Baron, and she gets killed. And that kind of ends most of the stuff there. Dune Messiah kind of ends. Paul goes off to die in the woods or in the desert because he doesn't like where Prescience is taking him, and he won't do what needs to be done. So he goes off to die. He has his 2 kids. That ends that book. We go into the next book. This is Children of Dune. This one is the one that I've not revisited in the longest. So I'm going to go through it mostly quick because it's mostly just about the 2 twins growing up. So they're both the same in that they both like have the other memory at both sides. They both grew up like that. But the sister stays mostly a normal person. The brother ends up fusing with a sandworm and becoming a sandworm monstrosity. And that leads into the 4th book, where it's been 3,500 years. There are no more sandworms on Dune. The sandworms, we find out that the life cycle, the sandworms actually create the desert on Dune. Because their baby form, like, locks up all the water on a planet and keeps it down under the ground, where they live in it as little sand trout things. And they keep the water together, and then eventually they grow into big worms, and that causes the spice somehow. There's like a big ecological cycle. So he gets rid of all the worms so that he's the only worm, and he hoards all the spice and controls the galaxy. He does this for a really long time. And the whole time, he keeps these Golas around. He keeps copies of Duncan Golas. I've mentioned this before because this is the episode that Grim and Mandy did a parody of. But he keeps the Golas coming. Sometimes they betray him, sometimes they don't. He likes having the Golas around, so he always has the Duncan Gola. So he's been doing that for thousands of years. Of course, the book happens towards the end. So how does his reign end? Oh, another thing I gotta mention up. These will become important later. He has an all-female army I talked about before. These are the fish speakers. This is kind of like an interesting setup. So he actually he does like a spice ritual with them every so often, where like they kind of can see for a brief glimpse what he's doing, like the path he sees and why he does stuff. And that makes them like really worship him. Like really. Like the fish speakers are like dedicated. In fact, in like the weird religion he has, because like he is their god emperor literally. They have like a whole religion around him and stuff. And they view themselves, like the entirety of the fish speaker army, view themselves as his bride. So, like, they think they're married to him, more or less.
Damn, that's like a anime harem before that was a thing, I guess.
Yeah, like if your whole army was an anime harem for you. So what has happened the Ixians have been working on creating a space that no prescient can see. This is what is called a no ship. And Leto, the God Emperor Leto II, has been also breeding the Atreides to create a bloodline that prescients can't see. So basically, this will free humanity from ever being under the thumb of a prescient, because prescients will no longer be able to know where all humans are. So that's important because that lets the Ixians grow a person that's kind of designed to be a trap for Leto. Basically, they make they make a clone girl of who their clone is isn't really important. But they basically grow a girl and train her to be the ultimate trap for Leto, because he's going to want her so bad. Oh my god, so bad, you guys. For real. She's just got the best personality ever. Also, Duncan wants her so bad, for real. To the point that, like, part of what makes him want to kill Leto is because he's mad that, like, he can't have which is the name of this girl. So Leto knows he's going to die at some point. Basically, what he's doing is he sees the golden path, and all he does is make sure that that path stays there. Every problem that comes up, every issue that arises, he just does whatever he has to do to keep that path there. And it's very easy for him to do because he sees, like, all the futures and he has absolute power. But it's really boring. He kind of hates it. He doesn't like not being a person. He doesn't like the fact that, like, he can't really remember a lot of human sensations. He doesn't have, like, he gets mentally horny, but he has no, like, he doesn't have, like, a dick anymore. Lots of things like this he talks about. These books get really sexual as time goes on. Like, we're just at the start of it. So anyway, the big thing that happens is he ends up getting killed, which is good. That's what he planned on. He keeps the Bene Gesserit around the entire time. He never gets rid of them. He just weakens them. He never gets rid of the Ixians either, because he thinks that, like, machines are important. He just thinks that, like, they can't be used thoughtlessly. So he likes this struggle of having, like, the Ixians be there on the edge, but be tampered down by everyone else. And he likes the machines they give him, because they give him, like, machines that journal for him, because he can't write. But he can, like, record his thoughts with their machines, and they give him, like, a thing that he can write around on. So, you know, because he's a big worm, and he can move really quick in the desert, and he can be like a real worm boy in the desert, but when he's around other people, he has to be on, like, this big machine that floats him around and stuff. But he's not weak. He's strong. Like, he is a part in the book where he can get attacked, and he, like, rolls over people like a giant Jabba the Hutt that can fight people. Like, he goes full wrathful. But
Which
anyway,
I don't think we've ever seen in Star Wars. Like, do Hutts do anything? I don't know. I've never seen one do anything.
There are Jedi Hutts. I think it's weird, though, because, all right, so you'll see some art of, like, Hutts where they're jacked, and it's sort of funny. It's just, they look like they wouldn't be, but I think it's because we all got introduced to Hutts via Java. And Java is that Hutt. But I don't think they have to be that way. But they've also not really tried to show us Hutts that aren't that way. So I don't even know if Star Wars knows.
Damn.
But he dies. The big thing that happens there, the no devices, that technology gets out there. Humans split off. So what happens is, there's a big famine, and tons of people die, and then they scatter off and they spread to the four corners of the world, or the universe, right? And that was what he wanted to do. He wanted humanity to go off so they could never be ruled by a single prescient tyrant like him again. You know, even if he wanted to find them all, he couldn't. He'd never, you know, somehow he could recapture his consciousness. His consciousness actually splits, so when he dies, he turns into a school of sand trout. Like hundreds of these sand trouts that'll eventually go capture all the water, become worms. And his consciousness is split up amongst them all. So he doesn't really die. He just kind of loses his ability to influence the world, but like he's still conscious in these thousands of sandworms and these this actually down the line religions are still formed about him, you know. There's religions about the girl that killed him, and there's religions about him, and people still worship the worm and stuff. So the Twi'lexu actually specifically view him as like a prophet of God. They're kind of interesting. The Twi'lexu religion feels like space Islam a little bit, and the God Emperor Leto is like the prophet of it, which is sort of wild. Part of what happens, part of the like whole Bene Gesserit thinking is that with religions is you don't even necessarily have to be the same religion as someone to secure an alliance with them. You just have to convince them that you're God inspired, or that like they can reasonably think that God's using you for something that's within their own belief system. And that
makes sense.
Yeah, right? And so they use their knowledge of like all these religions and stuff to be able to like manipulate the Twi'lexu a bit. So we got the time skip. So what's happening now in 3,500 years in the future? The Bene Gesserit have found a girl who can control sandworms. That's a cool new power. They want to use her for some stuff. They have been keeping Golas of Duncan, Idaho. They've been making tons of them. Why? Because they think it's cool, but they're split about it. Half the Bene Gesserit think it's really dangerous, and the other half are like, no, we have to do this, actually. They're on the 12th one, and what they're trying to do is, like, figure out... They know something's different about the Golas, but they don't know what yet. And so they're trying to figure out what to do with it. They awaken his memories, and what ends up happening, what's special with this Gola, is he ends up getting all of his old memories. So normally the Gola, you would only get like your first life memories, but he gets back all of the memories of every Gola that the God Emperor ever produced of him. So now he's almost like a Reverend Mother, but different. You know, they have like tons of other people's lifetimes. He just has his own. But because the Emperor made thousands of years worth of Golas, it's a lot of time. And some of those Golas were Mentats. Mentats are like computer people. They're another one of the schools that got developed after we didn't have technology. Basically, they go into a mode which is like they call it like naiveness or something like that. It's a mode where like they ask basic questions, they don't make assumptions, they follow lines of thoughts, they create projections, and it's really smart, super smart mode. Mentats are super useful. So he's like a really strong. So he's really strong. He's got tons of lives. He's got this Mentat power. He's also been bred to resist honored Montre sex traps. I'm going to mention who they are. The honored Montre have come from the scattering. So all those groups that went out, some of them have come back. Why? Because something big and bad is out there, and we don't know what. We don't know what. The whole time, the last two books, 5 and 6, that were dealing with the honored Montre problem, we're like trying to figure out what is it that brought them back here.
Right.
Something bad. And we think we know that it uses biological warfare, because the honored Montre are like the Bene Gesserit, except bad. Except they're the Bene Gesserit that you got at home. So what happens is it turns out I'm gonna put books 5 and 6 together because they really are like one kind of connected story. But it turns out that the fish speakers from before, they went out into the scattering. They had some Bene Gesserits with them. They're little fish speaker democracies turned into autocracies, kind of like America, and became their weird sexist cult thing. So the Andromatres have like a female-ran society where the Matres just kill anyone they want to at any point in time. They can use their powers of sex to make men like literal slaves. I think they can use it on women too if they want to, but I know men can learn to use it on women too, and that happens. But they do that. They basically have no self-control, and most critically, they don't have other memory, which is why they've fallen into this trap of like this really bad governance system. The Bene Gesserit know that the pattern of like kind of total dominance, kill anyone who disagrees, take slaves, oppress like society. They know that this pattern always collapses. That's another thing they talk about a lot, is like patterns in human history, one thing leading to another thing, leading to doom, and how it's repeated. This comes up a lot. So they know that that's why, but they've got some other things too. They're really strong physically. They've trained themselves so that they have an automatic reaction to the voice. So if like a Bene Gesserit were to try to use the voice to control them, their body physically reacts without them having to think and will try to kill you. So they're very like physically strong. The Bene Gesserit are physically strong too. They know how to fight. They all train their bodies and stuff. So the Andromatri come in. They're a big problem. They start taking over everything. Like they're taking over mad planets. They destroy Dune. They destroy the Twi'lexi civilization. The Bene Gesserit are able to save worms. So they've saved some sandworms. They've captured one Twi'lexi. He's the last surviving Twi'lexi master. And so we find out a bit more about Twi'lexi society. Here's how fucked their society is. So the important thing reveal about the secret of the Golem memories is we learn that the masters have had this a long time. The masters are like clones of themselves. And in fact, Sightale, he escapes in a new clone body that's a younger Sightale body.
As one does.
Yeah. That's why he's been through history throughout the whole time of these books. That's why they have this weird master society. Like all the masters are like just reborn and keep living, and they create these other lower castes to use as they need. But he's the last master. And within him, he has this little thingy, this little like vial of something that has like I think the genetic sequences to bring back all the other masters. So he's kind of like the last hope of their society. There are no female Twi'lexi. That's a big reveal in the books, is that they've never seen one, but they know about something called these axolotl tanks. It's something they use in birthing Golas. It turns out, or it's like reveals kind of, that they made these out of women somehow, or that's their origin. And the reason they don't have Twi'lexi women anymore is because they've replaced them with this axolotl tank tech to birth all their people. The Bene Gesserit want that because the axolotls have learned how to make a synthetic spice out of it. And the Ixians have also built a device that lets them fold space. So people aren't dependent on the sandworms anymore, although it is nice to have a backup. The Bene Gesserit were dependent on the sandworms until they got this tech from Sightale, which they do eventually get from him. The fun thing with them is, like I said earlier, they worship the God Emperor, because the God Emperor's thoughts are like split up on all the sand trout. After the Twi'lexi thing is destroyed and they reveal to him that, hey, you say you serve the prophet and you serve God or whatever, even though you think we're Pawinda, which is their term for like non-believers, and like unclean people. It's like, well, here's the prophet right here. Here's a sandworm. That's God in front of you. And he's like, fuck, okay, well, now I guess I do have to help you. So that's how they kind of get his assistance through that. There's also Twi'lexi out in the scattering. Stuff's gone wrong with them. We don't know tons about it. But we do know... Oh, there's another character that's important. There's a guy, he's called the Bashir. His Miles Tag. He's a god. The dude's a god. He's like their biggest, strongest, bestest military commander ever. He like transcends and becomes like a Superman tat, which is really neat. He can like, so he at the end of book 5 he dies, and when he dies in like this grand moment of resisting, like I think it was like an imprinting, and that pushed him to become like the super mode, and he goes out in a blaze of glory, killing like 30 honored mantras, like moving quicker than people can see, and like real anime-esque fucking ripping people apart moments. The action is like, there aren't tons of action scenes in Dune, but when they happen, it's like Dragon Ball Z on steroids. Nuts stuff happens. So then he dies. They want to bring him back. He's the first Gola they make once Saitail shows them how to make Golas. But Golas age normally, so it's a little kid. And you have to awaken Gola's old memories. They don't have it naturally. To do that, you have to kind of cause a lot of pain to them. Not like literally hurt them, but the process of recovering the memories is painful. And it's kind of hard to do. You have to like grow them in an environment similar and fill them with things that will like kind of remind them of stuff in the past but they can't know. And the Miles Tag actually awoken the Idaho Gola for them a long time ago. Now they want the Idaho to awaken this Gola. But they end up not doing that. They end up doing it through sexual imprintation. One of the things Bene Gesserit can do is imprint themselves onto a man or woman, so that you like. It's like how the Honored Mantra make you addicted to them via sex. It's kind of like that, except I think it's a bit more emotional too. But they go to do the imprinting on him, this is the part I told you it's going to be weird. He's a child body, and they even talk about going to touch his penis. And then, yeah, but he snaps out of it beforehand. The act of trying to imprint him awakens him, and then he resists it like he resisted before, and then also reveals his like superpowers, which is that he can like move super fast through like faster than like sight, and even maybe light. It's implied that he might be even like warping space-time or something with his powers. It's really strong. And so that's like his other bit. The other special power that kind of Duncan Idaho has is he can see two beings. He's getting visions of them, and he doesn't know what they are. But they are two beings, two other consciousnesses, and they are watching. And he doesn't know what they're doing. But they're called Daniel and Marty. And that's really weird to me because, like, I don't know why they're just, it's such simple names. But, like, these two mysterious beings have them. And near the end of the story, they try to catch them with, like, a tachyon net or, like, some special device. And Duncan's able to help them escape because he can see it and warp them away. And that's how it ends. They, like, they're in the war with the Honored Matres. They capture one Honored Matre, and they train her to be a Bene Gesserit, and she and Duncan are in love, and they get, like, sexually imprinted on each other. But she ends up wanting to be a Bene Gesserit, because, like, basically she does all their learning and stuff and realizes, oh, the Honored Matres are, like, basically children. We're so dumb. Oh my god, we're so dumb. And then she gets her other memories, and she even ends up becoming the, like, Supreme Reverend Mother of the Bene Gesserit. Like, she's the leader now. Duncan kind of hates it because he's in love with her, but once you become a Reverend Mother, you're different, and he doesn't like that because he's a normal dude. And the book ends with, basically the Reverend Mother and the Grand Honored Matre kill each other, and Marbella becomes the head Bene Gesserit, and also commands the Honored Matres because she, like, can basically kill all their leaders, so she wins by dominance. And she used to be one of them, so they listen to her. And so they're going to convert all the Honored Matres into Bene Gesserit over time, basically. But she's going to change the Bene Gesserit a little bit in that she knows that all emotion isn't bad. So they basically kill the Honored Matres. and get to regroup, and then they escape. And then Duncan, Idaho, and a few other people shoot off too. Oh, one other bit I want to mention, because this is super cool and it's so weird. Jews exist in this universe, and they escape with some of them. So,
wow.
Yeah. So in book 5...
Nobody else, just Jewish people?
So it's implied that Christianity has morphed into whatever religion uses the orange Catholic Bible. And then you see like shades of Islam and Muslim teachings through like the Fremen and other ones. But the Jews they're the most similar. Now they are in hiding.
Okay.
They are deep down in dark hiding. They don't talk about being Jewish unless they're like on a planet that's only Jewish people. They like keep it secret. But what happens is in like book 5, there's Bene Gesserit who is going to get caught and killed by the Honored Matre. It's just going to happen. She finds Jewish people, and what they have their own Reverend Mothers, kind of. So they call these, Bene Gesserit called these wild Reverend Mothers. The Fremen had them too, but it's basically people who have learned how to do the whole other memory thing, but like outside of the Bene Gesserit order. The Jewish people use this. It's how they preserve what they call Israel, which I guess to them Israel is now basically just the collective memory of like Jewish people. So what Bene Gesserit can do, they can do like, it's called the sharing. It's kind of like a mind meld. They can put all their memories and all their other memory into you. So like, I have the other memory of my lineage. I give it to you. Now you have it of both, and they can rinse and repeat. So to make sure that they recover, because this one Bene Gesserit is important. She had like a whole planet's worth of Bene Gesserit other memories. They put it in this wild Jewish Reverend Mother and task her with basically taking that back to the Bene Gesserit, which they do manage to do right before the very end. Like right when the last book is ending, before they're going to escape, they find the rabbi and his daughter who has these memories, and they get it back. And I thought that was really cool. I thought it made a lot of sense that would be like, that they would, if they had the other memory, they would use it to preserve Israel. Like, I don't know, that whole concept just makes a lot of sense to me. But, I don't know, it's very, I don't know, just that the idea is very intriguing to me, that would be the case. But yeah, so the book kind of lets off with, it just ends with you knowing that there's something bad out there in the scattering. It's something possibly biological. We don't know what. It's so bad that it scared the Honored Matres back to the old empire. Like, the reason they've come back to conquer people is not out of the fact that they just wanted to come conquer the old empire. It's because they were running away. And they just happened into this place. And, bam. The books end. If we don't know what the big threat is, we don't know what the two entities are, we don't know what the tachyon net is. We just know that that they're gonna live, and they've ran away and escaped, and all the main characters are kind of intact. The Honored Matres are grouped into the Bene Gesserit, so they're going to evolve and continue on. And it's really good. I feel like I just can't do it justice. All the intrigue between the characters, and all of the just discussion of especially the political philosophy of it. Like, I love there's like an exchange they do where they're talking about types of leadership and bureaucracies and like covering your own ass, like the best, like it's talking about, there's a bit where they're talking about verbal leaders, and your leaders that give verbal instructions are best because they react the quickest and will just snap away, snap into action and give commands. And if the commands are bad and they're able to own up to them, then it's good, they can correct the mistakes. But if they're like shitty, leaders will like end up in like bureaucracies and try to cover their ass and create records of who decided what so that they can point fingers and not solve the problem and like not um basically are more worried about not being blamed for stuff than getting
Right.
stuff done. And there's just tons of moments of like little examinations of that in the book. You know, how quickly a bureaucracy turns in to like an aristocracy.
It's like it's a metaphor for something.
Yeah. It's just good. But yeah, that's my big Dune thing. And I know the broad strokes of where his son takes it. Which is why it feels so weird because like in the end it's robots. It's robots. It's the robots from the Butlerian Jihad because the son takes it, and I don't want to judge it too harshly until I've actually read the books. But he makes it a lot more of like a generic Terminator kind of machines took over. There's a big bad machine brain god, and then it turns out that they're not actually gone. They're coming back, and the like last 2 books are them coming back, and yeah, we'll see when we get to it. But
that kind of reminds me of a plot point in an episode of Rick and Morty where Morty goes to a dimension that's kind of like semi-primitive, and then his thoughtless involvement creates a phenomenon that fosters a religion centered around like the idea of Morty existing in that universe where there are no humans, and then that religion like bolstering a information age that ultimately ends with like everyone just becoming cyborgs.
yeah, that episode is so good. That's the Narnia Thor one or whatever, right? He's trying to make wine.
Well, he's not even, they don't even make it. I guess like it's just there. Or they make it and like Rick was just like keeping bottles of it hidden in a bush.
Yeah, he's aging it or something.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good episode. Yeah, I love Rick and Morty. Even the bad seasons, I still like them.
Yeah, not a fan of that one episode about the turkey pardoning. That was a bit not what I'm into. Still had some good jokes though, but bad premise. Whoever wrote that, try again.
Yeah, I've just been so Dune pilled marathoning those last 2 books. I don't know. I just and I love the audiobooks are really good too because they'll even have like different people read the different sections and they always give them these like accents, and I don't know why I like it when the Honored Matre characters talk with their funny little accents. I want to be their friend.
For me, I have kind of been super behind on reading anything. I did finally finish Plastic Man No More, which was a limited series from the DC Black Label people. And the premise is essentially Plastic Man is dying. His body is like not keeping its plasticness, kind of like when you buy an electronic and it's covered in that oily rubber that eventually just like falls apart after a decade. But like for Plastic Man, his body is like melting and he's developing tumor like growths. It's almost like a metaphor for cancer, but it can't be cancer. He's made of plastic. And the story follows him like realizing he's dying, and he is rushing to reconcile with like his past. He used to be a criminal before becoming a superhero, as well as reconnecting with his son, who he's ultra estranged with, like not even normal estranged, just like super estranged.
Advanced estrangeness.
I liked it. Pretty good Plastic Man story. Very body horror-ish, which I love to see in a comic book. Shout out to the freak minds that made Immortal Hulk. That was a great body horror book.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Loved it.
I loved that bit where his body was cut up in the jars.
Yeah.
And like, oh, so good.
I love how the scientist is like gloating and pontificating, and then the Devil Hulk is just like staring at him with a grin.
So good. But yeah, I've heard good things from several people about that Plastic Man book. I regretfully did not pick that up as it was coming out because I've just not read a bunch of Plastic Man traditionally, although I know he's a very beloved character.
I think it works well as like a standalone book. So even if someone isn't super familiar with Plastic Man, they'll still get something out of it. I personally would have preferred reading the trade, but it just was really easy to just once a month type in Plastic Man into the search engine, and then, oh boy, there's a new issue. I would get it late, but I got it eventually. And then I guess the trade is coming out in February of this year, which is too long, but I guess, it's what's the harm in waiting a month? Makes sense.
Yeah. It'll be out by, people listening to this will have plenty of time to pick it up, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is exciting. I'll definitely check that out. It's on my ever-growing list of media to consume. You already started this week. I'm only 4 episodes in, but really enjoying it. Arcane.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How is it?
It's really good. I played like no League of Legends. I don't really even know all the characters, so I'm coming into this purely from like a animation TV show perspective. But no, it's really good. I like the design work on all the characters. I like how the animation looks, the kind of design style, the shapes, the blockiness, all that stuff. Just really good. I don't know. I'm really excited. Like I said, I'm about 4 episodes in. I just started it yesterday, but I was gripped. Like before the end of the first episode, I was sold.
How is the storytelling so far? Because I've never watched the show because it felt like, based on when I would look at people talking about it, that the storytelling was almost like running on baby mode. But maybe that's just how people are choosing to talk about it. Maybe it's not like that.
I wouldn't say running on baby mode. I could see how someone might like view it as young adult-esque because the first 3 episodes, we are following like the main characters as like children, kind of getting like their origin. So maybe like that is part of it, but they're like, I would say the storytelling is really good. I think it's
not like oversimplified or anything like that.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it works. I've not finished it, so I don't know. Maybe it all falls apart. But Act 1 was really good, and the first episode of Act 2, which I'd started, I'd liked a lot.
It does look good. Every time I see a clip of it, I think, sure wish anything else about it looked interesting to me. I think it's just the fact that it's League of Legends is keeping me at arm's length.
Yeah, it does. It is a little distracting because you're always wondering which of these characters are like in-game characters and which aren't, because I have no idea. But
probably for the best, because you're able to engage with it like on its own merits. Whenever it comes to adaptations of stuff, there's always the risk of like something getting altered or changed that might make people familiar with the source material not as into like treating it fairly. Like I've definitely done that with the animation adaptations for Tekken stuff. Like every time there's a Tekken anime, I'm like, nah, I wouldn't have done that. It's very hard for me to like just take it at face value and like treat it fairly.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's and I stayed away a long time too because it was League of Legends and I didn't really want to, I didn't know, I don't know, I just didn't really want to dip my toes into it, mostly because of the brand. But now I'm really enjoying it, and that probably does help with it. So you might even like it more going into it without knowing any of that.
It has been enough time that like there are characters that I know nothing about. I think I stopped playing like a year after Jinx came out, so there's probably like light years of League of Legends stuff that's like core League of Legends that I have no knowledge of.
I remember being very well, I never started playing League of Legends because out of mostly pettiness. Because like once I found out that like last hitting was a mechanic, I was like, I hate this. So I'm never playing this game. Then it was getting like more popular than WoW because it was coming out towards like when the Lich King expansion was out, which was the peak of WoW subscriber numbers, and League was like already approaching it as far as player base. Yeah. I wasn't ready to accept that MMOs were no longer the cutting edge of online gaming anymore.
That's kind of why I was playing it, like pure pettiness. I always liked the aesthetics of like Blizzard games, like the character designs and such, but I have been a hard-nosed, never Blizzard guy for like probably 20 plus years at this point. But we would have stuff like Darksiders and such that kind of like is pulling from the same design pool, and I always wanted like something like Darksiders that is online. So that's why I got into League for that brief period. And
Makes
then
sense.
Dota was a thing, but someone I hated was playing Dota, so I was in hashtag never Dota.
But yeah, I get that about Dota 2. And honestly, it just like now Dota 2, it feels like it's such an old game and it's been around so long that it's like you have to play 1,000 hours to like compete.
Oh yeah. I actually got excited when the new Counter-Strike came out because I thought, okay, finally, I can enjoy Counter-Strike. I don't have to deal with people who have already like surpassed the concept of a meta and now are just like ultra gaming the game. But no, turns out I'm just not good at Counter-Strike.
Oof.
Thankfully, it still has bots, so I can waste time with the bots like I used to.
Hell yeah. Darksiders is you mentioned the art style there being like your favorite, like kind of WoW, not WoW, or at least being a part of the appealing to you. I love that.
Yeah, it's got that kind of like concept art core kind of thing going for it. Like, you ever go on DeviantArt and there's like someone who's like, I'm a concept artist, and it's like, oh, you're just drawing WoW fan art. Apparently, that's like a whole thing that they teach you in art school to like go out and do.
Yeah, the very
and then sometimes it becomes an actual product.
Yeah, the art style on those games are really like heavily influenced by like Joe Madero, and I've got like the art of books for 1 and 2, and those are so sick.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I love that kind of. I guess we really associate it with WoW. Joe Maduro, some other artists like Stegman kind of does it, but like where it's kind of blocky. They like almost kind of cartoony. The things have like a lot of thickness and chunkiness to them, but I think it looks really good.
And translates really well to like video game stuff.
Mm-hmm. because it can be I imagine it helps the 3D modelers be able to like see it more,
Yeah.
understand how it would function in game. A big critique I see on a lot of concept art portfolios is to make sure that it's easy for the people to translate your art into a usable 3D asset.
Which I guess isn't as big of an issue now. Like, seems like every year some new anime game comes out that just breaks all of those rules. But back then, we only had so many polygons to work with. So it's like, be more economical. We don't have Bandai money over here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, something I wanted to share is that a few months ago, I was looking at this Pilet computer, Pilet. It's a Raspberry Pi-esque product that basically takes the normal Raspberry Pi computer setup and puts it into a portable pre-built shell with a preset board setup that allows it to be semi-modular. And because it's built on a Raspberry Pi, that modularity is almost infinite because everyone's doing stuff with the Raspberry Pi. And so it's about as computery as a small computer could get. Like, when you buy a pre-built and it's like, okay, well, with this pre-built, I can at least like change out the RAM. I can add PCI cards. This is a close equivalent to that, just on the basis of like what it's built on top of. And I had been sitting like waiting. When are they going to release it? When can I buy this? It's going to be on a Kickstarter soon. So that's how they're doing it. They're rolling it out on Kickstarter.
Okay.
Mentioning it now so that anyone listening can take a look. You can tell me if I'm insane for wanting this or not. But I think it looks cool. I like the idea of a portable computer that isn't my phone.
Do you have any clue what price point they're going to target this? Because I'm looking at what you linked here, and it's coming soon, but pretty sparse.
They haven't launched it yet. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It was rumored to be around $200. I don't know if they'll stick to that. It's possible that the Kickstarter might have been a way to bolster production costs, which means it might have come out to be more than that. We'll find out. If it is more than 200, I probably won't get one.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I could just like buy a laptop.
Yeah, but it looks cool. I see. What man? What's this? They've got. That's an IDE, some kind of code thing on the left there, and on the right, it looks like a Blender preview window, but with stacks of money. I think that's them after they've sold us this.
Definitely. On the left, I think that's just a normal user interface rather than an IDE. It might be a Mint Linux or something.
On the left of the on this right screen, it's sort of split in half. You got the left side there, and that looks like code syntax to me. It looks like import, some math, probably like a for loop or something with some if statements.
But that's probably what they're using to generate those shapes. There's a lot of coding that you can get into with Blender if you aren't afraid of breaking it.
Interesting.
That's another reason why I want to get more into Blender, because it seems like it just covers everything at this point, except for game development. They were going to make Blender into a game engine, and then they said, never mind, burn it all, get it out of here.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't have to do literally everything.
Yeah, just everything else.
You're right, that does look like Linux. I was going to even say Mac for a second, but I mean, Linux, Mac, they're like the same. They're they're similar-esque. But yeah, it reminds me of a Game Boy. A Game Boy with like a full keyboard on it.
Which is cool. Reminds
How
me of
big
my
is this
first cell
supposed to
phone.
be? I'm realizing that I don't have any sense of scale for it.
Oh yeah, that actually would be important. I think they said it's like 5 inches wide,
Okay.
so almost like a bit wider than a normal phone,
Okay. Yeah, that's
maybe two
cool.
phones.
Yeah, I dig it. I dig it.
And then I guess there's the argument that could be made that one could just buy a Raspberry Pi 5 and then build something like this themselves. Um, I'm interested in it because I don't have to source the parts myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like getting a battery that will like be safe for me to use, or having to pick a screen that is inexpensive but also has a low battery drain, doesn't look like garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Putting it all together, 3D printing the shell. I don't have a 3D printer.
I mean, it's a lot of work to make like a bespoke little product like that for yourself, you know?
Yeah.
A lot that goes into it you don't think about. Yeah, otherwise, we'd have way more of those YouTube do-it-yourself channels.
Oh
Because
yeah,
everyone could do
definitely.
it themselves. I saw.
Recently, there was a guy that created a Switch style dock for the PlayStation Vita, which it's
Ooh.
like 10 years too late, but sure, why not? And that looked pretty cool. A lot of it is just like random stuff you can buy for a few dollars or even like half a dollar on AliExpress. But then he lost me with the 3D printing of the case that houses all the hardware. I'll have to use one of those printing services if I want the exact design that the YouTube guy had created.
Man, so many people 3D printing now. It makes me want to get one, but I don't. I ain't got space for that.
Yeah. I really want to at some point though, because using a 3D printing service is not inexpensive. I
Oh
feel
yeah.
like after a certain point, if I've used it enough times, I'll have spent the amount of money I could have just spent on a printer. Like there are some inexpensive printers that can produce high quality work. Just it would take longer than probably a more expensive printer.
I
It
wonder
would be the
how hard
trade-off.
it would be to make like it economical to include little 3D printed figurines as like Kickstarter or Patreon rewards if you owned the printer.
It might depend on how it's built because the material is also like
Yeah, it's a big
not
top.
inexpensive.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Although I guess it would also be cheaper than like hiring out a factory to manufacture it for you.
Yeah, something I want to get into doing one day is making my own kind of like I don't know, kind like my own kind of merch. I know you can do stuff like with t-shirts and stuff through like Redbubble and they'll make it on demand. And like I would use that too, but I also think it'd be cool to make your own t-shirt. Like to
Oh
make your
yeah.
own like anything. I don't know. I just think making your own merch just seems so cool to be like just as a concept, even if it's not the most cost effective way to do it. But it feels just neat to have done it yourself.
And that could be factored into the cost if the final work is high quality enough. Like you could charge more than a normal t-shirt would cost, just factoring in your own labor.
Mm-hmm. Because really, yeah, you're selling ostensibly to like a existing fan base already who are there just as much for like the use of the product and the quality of it as they are for like the fact that it's related to your specific IP or whatever. So you factor all that in. It's not like you're trying to make sell 1 billion shirts. Probably just want to sell 1,000 shirts, but to the right 1,000 people.
That's probably why Mega 64 does their like little t-shirt specials. They probably are just like putting down the absolute minimum cost for like 1,000 shirts and then saying, once it's gone, it's gone.
Would make sense.
Depending on the printer, it would probably be very easy to do as well. Like, I haven't used it myself, but I've been researching a lot about how Alibaba works as a service.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it is just a bunch of manufacturing companies have the like systems and processes already set up for whatever miscellaneous product that you want to put your branding on. And some manufacturers are flexible. They will tailor the resulting product to your specifications and then charge you extra accordingly. And then you are just like committing to a stock order of whatever the thing is. Like, you want to sell a quote unquote beauty cream that is probably not actually as beneficial to anyone as just like normal facial care, but you're an online person that is okay with like putting your name on that kind of product. Someone at Alibaba will take your brand logo, put it on the container. Maybe if you say, I want it to have a particular kind of a chemical in it, they'll source that chemical for you.
Huh.
And it just came across my purview because a lot of the products that are offered on there are pretty cool. Like, people get a lot of get into a lot of barriers with like selling stickers and stuff. Like recently, we literally lost, what was it, Sticker Mule, because the owner was a weird conservative freak who was not being normal on main on the Sticker Mule account on Twitter.
Yeah, I heard of this.
And it's like, well, where do we go now? And yeah, there are no shortage of like domestic sticker printers, but you could probably get a better deal if you are planning far enough ahead to accommodate for however long it will take for the shipping to actually get to you from China. Alibaba probably has a sticker printer that is just as good, if not better, and more cost effective than a domestic sticker printer. And there might even be someone that could do the same kind of thing for like cards. If I wanted to get cards printed out, like there must be someone out there offering that, given that there's no shortage of like fake Yu-Gi-Oh card vendors.
Yeah, I imagine there has to be. I've not looked at sticker prices, although that's another thing I'm super interested in doing. I have a friend in a Discord server, actually, that I bought some stickers off of recently. She made these really sick. One was an absolute Wonder Woman, and the other one was a Black Widow. These really sick stickers. I think I bought 4 of them for like $15 or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's normal.
Yeah, two to throw in my little collection of stickers. Cause I've got like a bag and board that I put like extra stickers I get from everything in. So I've got like a little collection, and then whenever I have extras, I throw them on like sketchbooks and stuff.
I also collect stickers in that way. Eventually, I will have a virtual collage on my website with all the stickers I have. It's just that I haven't been working on it because I have to get the sticker, lay it out, take a picture of it, scan it, get like the background removed, then add it to the collage. And it's like, that's too much work. This is too menial for just like, wow, look at all the stickers I have.
If only you could use AI to automatically
Oh, if only. If
process.
AI could like remove the background after I take the picture, that would be so great.
I
I
know.
feel like that's an ethical use of that.
I know on my phone I can like highlight and figure in an image, and it will AI its best to try and isolate it out of the image, which is kind of cool.
I'll have to look into that.
I don't know how hard it would be to set that up like programmatically. You'd still got to deal with taking the picture and stuff too, unless you got a robot around. In which case, we could make
We're
this
not there
even
yet,
more automated.
but apparently this is the year that sex robots are supposed to come out. So maybe a sex robot could be repurposed into a photographing robot.
Oh my god, speaking of sex robots, that reminds me of another thing that I read this week. So I blind bought this. Didn't have any expectations going in. But an omnibus of cyberpunk comics came out. It had 3 different 4-issue long stories in it, and I just picked it up. And they were all really good.
Oh, for 2077?
Yeah, Cyberpunk 2077 comics, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Not all the stories are things not related to like characters from the game, but just
Yeah.
set in Night City. So one issue was following someone who works on one of those like trauma teams that like is there to help save rich people who are in trouble.
Yeah, it's basically super privatized healthcare.
Yep. So she works on one, and like her whole team gets killed, and then later, she has to like she's back on the job, and she's a little traumatized by it, and the client she's saving is the guy that killed her old team. So there's a lot of conflict there. Another one that's like about a dude who works on like for a company that does like brain dance scans, and like he's not happy with it, but it's also about how you can't trust people, and that has like they set up this heist and it goes a bunch of different ways, and then they've got another one that's kind of about someone who retired from the gang. It was really good. I was super impressed and surprised too, because licensed books, especially like when they're based off a game property, it's always hit or miss. It could be good, it could be really bad.
Yeah. I'll have to check it out. I have looked at a lot of like extra material based on that particular, for lack of a better term, IP, and a lot of it has been pretty good. Like some novels here and there. There's also that Edge Runners anime that was really good.
See, I've not seen that yet, but after having read these comics, I'm like, maybe I should go check that out. Maybe that's really good.
There's going to be a prequel manga for that coming out soon.
Oh.
Which is funny because like the week before they announced it, I was complaining in a Discord server, like, what is going on with CJ Product Red? Did they not know how to like fleece me for money? Why am I not drowning in Edge Runners content? Why is my Edge not being run through my wallet?
Yeah, well, they heard you, and they said they're gonna edge that wallet.
Yeah, I guess their ears were burning because it's going to be like a whole volume. They're not doing like a chapter by chapter release or something.
Interesting.
Hopefully it sells well and we'll get more of that.
Hopefully.
Because the game, I guess they're just like donezo with that. They had that one expansion and then they quote unquote fixed the game by like redoing all of the like progression branches and the way that missions are laid out and like fixing the various bugs and such. And then after that expansion came out, they were like, okay, we're done. We're not doing anything else. Here are all of our toolkits so you can make your own mods. bye. I was like, oh, really? Damn. I was kind of hoping that this would be like a Neverwinter sort of thing where I would get sick of there being new expansions.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Oh well.
I
I've
guess it
not
was
played
just
the
like too
expansion yet.
hard for them to develop for, or maybe the fact that they did just like speed run development after that one E3 presentation uh, dampened the whole thing.
Yeah, could
Because it
be.
was definitely a mismanaged product. We all know that now in the hindsight. But I love the end result.
Mm-hmm. Same. I've not played the expansion yet. I bought it, but I still need to get around to playing it. I've been meaning to go back to it recently, actually. Because I'd read Neuromancer, and that had got me real in the mood to play. And I'd reinstalled it, but I just hadn't got around to booting it up.
Yeah, I haven't gotten back to it either. Haven't even started the expansion. I have just picked up way too many other games between the initial release, several bug fixes and patches, and then the expansion coming out, and then them saying there won't be anything else. I'm like, okay, fine. I have my purchased copy. I guess I will get around to it at some point.
Mm-hmm. Understandable.
Super eager to see what the mod scene is like, though. Like, if somehow, without me knowing, there is a whole like ecosystem of people making their own expansions. If anyone wants to like sell me a hobbyist expansion, I'll probably buy it. I wonder if that would be allowed. That would be pretty cool to CD Projekt if they did allow people to create their own expansions for 2077 and then sell them. Like,
That'd
not
be
even
sick.
Bethesda is that cool.
Yeah, Bethesda sucks with kind of sucks about that these days.
Yeah.
And it's sad because they used to have such a such a blossoming community that like would make full ass expansions as mods to their games.
It really sucks that like people hate Starfield. Like, it's just reviled like across the board, because I love playing Starfield and I'm afraid to get to the end of it because there won't be anything else probably.
Yeah. Hey, spider. My cat is demanding attention.
As cats do.
He wants to be on the recording. But yeah.
Oh, and usually, like every episode, I try to bring a creative asset or tool to the conversation, but I have no such thing this episode. The only thing I have is everyone should learn Linux, or like find someone who you can trick into doing Linux for you. Because Microsoft is crazy. I think I read something where they are taking off the security limiters from Windows 11. So they want people to be able to install Windows 11 even on hardware that they were saying, oh, we don't want Windows 11 on those unsecured devices. And for a while, it was like, okay, fine. That's fair. I didn't want your stupid security chip nonsense anyway. I will just go to Linux. But I guess now they're getting scared. They're like, oh no, people aren't installing our adware as much as we wanted them to. Don't let them trick you. You know, it's not a good thing that Microsoft is allowing whatever device to install Windows 11. Just break up with Windows. Use Linux. whatever software you're using that's Windows born, I'm sure there's a Linux equivalent. If not, Windows compatibility solutions do exist. Everyone's heard of Wine. They got this other one, I think it's called Bottles, that is mostly for gaming, but can also be used for applications.
The only thing that concerns me with it, with completely abandoning Windows, is worrying about like my graphics tablet driver support, things like that.
True.
I'm not any experience with it, so I don't know what the situation's like. But definitely nothing stopping me from getting a second hard drive and doing a little dual boot scenario.
Yeah, even just to like try something out, like testing the waters to see how difficult it is to get whatever hardware you have on hand, like retrofitted into Linux. You could just get a distro, put it on a thumb drive, and then waste 4 hours like checking to see, are the drivers for this? Are the drivers for this? How long does it take for the like Linux kernel handshake to recognize my hardware? Stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then if it turns out that no solution exists, well, you lost nothing because it was all on a thumb drive.
Yeah. It's always a good approach. And thumb drives are cheap as heck nowadays.
That's my big thing going into 2025. Everyone should get on Linux. Windows 10 is losing its security update support. So Microsoft is all in on 11 and all in on serving you ads, all in on their weird nonsense interface that doesn't let you put the taskbar at the top of the screen. What is wrong with that?
They took away the ability to put taskbar at the top of the screen?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. It's crazy because it was always okay to do. And then for some reason in Windows 11, they're like, no, you can't do that. No, we're not going to give you the option.
Can you get like third-party software to do it?
I'm sure, definitely. People at work have like solicited permission to install whatever third-party application to do that on their work devices, which I'm always afraid of. Like on my work laptop, I have nothing extra, no outside software that has nothing to do with my job. I don't want anyone looking over my shoulder, like checking to see if what I asked for special permission to install is actually like beneficial to my job or not.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're all running Windows 11. It sucks. I hate it.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. The ads inside your fucking thingy is kind of obnoxious.
And it is possible to disable it. Like on my GPD Win 4, I installed a application called O&O Shut Up 10, which is like a anti-spyware sort of software that just makes it easy to go in and like disable Copilot, get rid of all of that newsfeed nonsense, disable telemetry for Microsoft Office because, yeah, why is there telemetry for Microsoft Office on my gaming device?
Yeah.
So solutions exist, and they're easy and accessible, but I feel like in the long term, we should all be divorcing ourselves from Microsoft.
Yes. Divorce from Adobe. Divorce from Microsoft. Divorce from all the big companies that are trying to turn your ownership of a product into rent-seeking.
Yeah, like even with Clip Studio, yeah, they have a subscription, but they will sell you like the last stable version for you to use for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
The subscription, I guess, is just for like whatever upcoming updates they think you're going to care about. But if you already are familiar with the software and you have like workflows you already care about, you can just like use the last stable version in perpetuity.
Yep.
You're not locked into the subscription, which I hope they stick with because it's a good setup.
It's best of both worlds, you know.
Yeah.
If people really just don't care about the long-term run cost, they just want to keep a sub, keep a sub. And if you are willing to throw down that big upfront cost, then you can just do that big upfront cost.
It's definitely a I guess it's going to be difficult for a lot of carryover to occur with Linux. Like for the longest time, we would only have GIMP as a point of reference for like, well, what if I need Photoshop? And it's like, yeah, GIMP does everything, but it's also like not very fun to use. Like anyone who was barely conscious when Windows XP was a thing is not going to like using GIMP. They're probably going to get stuck with paralysis and get nothing done. You got to give them Photoshop or like Affinity. And thankfully, Affinity somewhat works with the aforementioned bottles as like a possible solution.
Interesting. Also, I love that name, Bottles. What a software. Did they do that because of wine?
Maybe. I always imagined it as like a sort of visual metaphor for how it is running the application in a container. But
Oh,
I can
I see
definitely
that.
see the line between wine and wine bottles.
Yeah, I can. I see where you're coming from there too. The whole container thing. You ever heard of Docker? It's kind of old
Yeah.
now, but containerization is a big thing. Or I don't know when it became popular, but
I
it's the
used
last
to
few years it's
be
been a big thing.
such a Docker asshole. Like, the great thing about Docker is that it eliminates the whole it runs on my machine dichotomy because you're basically taking your machine,
It will
giving it
ship
to other
it.
people. Yeah.
It will ship your machine. I
It's
love
like,
the
oh, okay,
meme.
is that how it goes? All right, put it in the Docker.
It is nice though. It is a cool tune or tool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think with that, that just about wraps us up. Unless you have any last words.
No, nothing in particular. I guess just like as a personal note, I have not been having the greatest start of the year.
Oof.
I hate to be that guy, but I think everyone online should be nicer. Um, Try not to be too dismissive of people that might not be completely on your wavelength. Um, be more open minded and take advantage of the fact that if you are in conversation, there's probably some common ground to be found between each other. Uh, Unless the other person is just like an out and out ne'er do well troublemaker, clear expressed intent to do wrong, because those people definitely exist, like on
Yeah.
Twitter, like people like Elon Musk.
Yes.
But in all other cases, as we enter into this political era of weird Republican Trump fascism, you know, avoid infighting
Yeah.
if
We
you
do
can.
not. We don't need purity testing right now.
Yeah.
We need to build allyship and coalition building more so than anything, you know. Unless someone's like an out and out racist It's really more of a time to be trying to find common ground. You know, even if you don't agree with them on economic policy, do you agree with them on social issues? Do you agree with them on um, moral issues, etc.? You know, can
And
you?
it's mostly just because like any point of contingency or like difference, that's what those people will be preying on, and that's what will get promoted as like a means to keep stuff from getting done
Yeah, divide and conquer.
in order to promote their agenda, which is basically just to take everything away from everyone. And we don't want that.
Yes. Yeah. They want to take your money and make it their money.
And your lives. Like, there was something that came out recently where there was a government spending bill that would have literally put money into cancer research. And the people working under Elon were like, oh, don't need that. Oh boy, look at this unnecessary government spending. What? That's
Yeah.
good government spending.
Yeah. The richest guy on earth is coordinating with politicians to figure out how to take money from cancer research. That's
Literally.
that's fucked up. That's fucked up. Um but yeah, I think that's a good point to take away. Be nice to people. Coalition build. Uh you know, don't waste time trying to like just shout down people that are never going to agree with you. Work on the people that you can find common ground with and build up
Yeah.
from there. But yeah, so that has been this week's episode. I'm SnakeJess Draws. You can find me on Blue Sky or Instagram or the YouTube or the Patreon.
And I'm Julian. All of my stuff is hosted on vqcd.in. And I appear on social medias as Julian My Julian, for better or for worse.